podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Albert Loyola. Albert is a management consultant working in the field of AI for HR at Accenture. Albert, welcome to the show.
Hello, John. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today. Excited to be here.
It's our pleasure, my friend. So, Albert, let's start with a background of yourself. Can you give us a brief overview of your journey in technology, where you got started, some of the positions you've held along the way, taking us up to today as you lead a function at Accenture? Thank you.
So just a quick overview about myself. I started my career in the HR transformation space, working for Fortune 500 organizations in South America. I held different positions there, helping organizations to drive performance through the people side. Moved to the United States in 2012, worked for a couple of years in the oil and gas in the context of people experience and talent strategy. And then I jumped into management consulting, and I work for Accenture now for almost 4 years, helping organizations to define and drive their employee experience and talent strategy, all in the context of artificial intelligence, HR technologies to enable and enhance experiences.
Excellent. So focusing on your current role now, can you walk us through what you and your division does for your customers? Give us some insight into the types of organizations that you're working with, some of the problems that you guys are tackling, and most importantly, the impact that you guys can have.
Definitely. So just to take one step back, I'm aligned to the talent and organization practice within Accenture. And as I was sharing with this group, my expertise within the firm is to provide advisory to CHROs on HR technology and artificial intelligence. But in addition to that, I work with all the ecosystem of solutions that are enabling the employee experience using artificial intelligence and machine learning. So having this context, when we think about the talent and organization practice within Accenture, we are providing services and point of view in the context of 4 different components: model change, HR transformation, talent and new skilling, and future organization. So when we think about model change, we are talking about how can we enable organizations, how can we bring a strategy to start thinking about the new vision, the way how they are redefining their new strategy, and especially now in the context of the new normal and the hybrid work, Accenture come to provide support and define the specific change strategy, identify stakeholders, and create that value so that companies can move more faster and define the specific way to engage and conquer hearts and minds, all in the context of employee experience. When we think about HR transformation, is the way how HR is delivering value, the way how HR is organized, the processes. We are thinking about the technology that is going to enable human resources, but in addition to that, the way how they are adapting to the new normal and new business challenges. When we think about talent and new skilling, this is something that's growing across different industries and sectors. What we see in the market is that the skills are the new currency, and as a result of that, many organizations are trying to figure out what are the roles that I need for the future. And in addition to that, what are the skills my talent needs? Which brings us to the topic of the talent transformation, which is something that Accenture is currently helping with several organizations to define that talent strategy, starting from the talent inventory all the way to assessment, career pathways, and talent marketplace. And the last one, but not least, when we think about future organization, we are thinking about the future organizations adapt to the new normal, define the specific new requirement from customers, but also at the same time, how can they use intelligent technologies to define new products and services and be able to define an operating model that will allow them to act quickly so that they can address their client needs.
Quite a complex set of challenges that you guys are tackling. Can you help us then visualize what a typical project lifecycle looks like from first engagement, the types of conversations you're having with executives, and then what happens behind the scenes with you and your team to help them make those changes and some of the results from that?
That's a great question, John. So let me share with this audience this particular example that I was just involved recently with this organization. This organization was defining its enterprise AI and data strategy, and senior executives were trying to figure out what was the best approach, not only on the way how to set up the strategy and roadmap, but also start thinking about what are the talent implications that comes aligned to or as a result of this implementation enterprise-wide. So Accenture came on board in order to provide advisory in two capacities. The first one was related to the actual enterprise data strategy, define the data architecture, start thinking about data governance, processes, operating model, and so on. And then the other factor was the talent component. And that's where Accenture came in and started with the initial approach of try to understand their current talent and skills ecosystem, have a better understanding about where the talent sits, but in addition to that, have a better understanding in terms of skill proficiencies, and where's that hidden talent that could be an additional support to this enterprise-wide initiative. So Accenture started with a talent inventory, and then it's to the client to use intelligent technologies to be able to predict and advise this client in terms of future roles and skills. And based on that, define the new future state in the context of talent and HR. Furthermore, what we discussed with this client was as we define those future roles and skills, then we need to start thinking about how can we reskill the talent. But in addition to that, start thinking about as we start the reskilling process, how can we move talent to opportunities that are going to enable the enterprise data strategy? Something else to share with this team as we were helping this client in its enterprise data and AI strategy journey is a component that is called to or related to change management and adoption. Since this was a massive transformation for this organization, one of the things that Accenture advised this client was this is not only to focus on the technology, not only start thinking about the data management, governance, data architecture, and even the talent side. We gotta make sure that people understand your strategy. We gotta make sure that people understand how this is impacting their day-to-day work and their personal life. So what Accenture suggested was to define a change and adoption strategy that will allow the organization to bring and communicate the new changes, new ways of working, the vision that this company was trying to accomplish in the next 5 years, and use that information to keep the workforce engaged, but also create a sense of psychological safety, a sense of urgency, and involve different stakeholders across the organization so that they all can go towards the same direction. Project is still going, but definitely the client identified those specific use cases and he started thinking about how are they going to mobilize talent, match people to specific job opportunities, whether it's a full-time job, part-time, gig, project work, using artificial intelligence to match them to mentors. But what was very interesting for the CEO was how I can see or how he was able to see the movement of the skills and talent progressions and where are we moving talent so that they can use that talent to unlock capacity and be able to match those particular individuals to transformational projects.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
Albert, I want to get your take now on the impact that COVID has had, not just for Accenture, but mainly for your customers, because the knock-on effect of the changing workforce created a whole host of challenges. So can you give us some insight into what the last year and a half has been like for your customers, some of the changes, and how you guys were able to help them navigate?
So when we think about the whole pandemic and the new normal, I think there are three main factors to share with this audience. The first one was related to how organizations were able to adapt, were able to understand that the way how I was operating will need to be changed because now I have everyone working from home. The second topic was related to psychological safety, how they were able to find ways and create practices so that they can make people feel safe, make people feel like, hey, you're not going to lose the job. This is how your role will be adjusted. And these are your new responsibilities and some tips on how can you manage a team remotely. And then the last one was, what's the best way to reinvent my business and my product and services so that I can adjust to this new normal and be competitive in the market? So those are the three things that we see in the market in the last almost 14 months. So I would say, in addition to that, another thing to share with this audience was how the market also changed. And what I mean by that is how these solutions organizations competing in the HR innovation space were able to adapt as well. And I want to make a pause here to provide some background before I jump into the details on this particular topic. But let's think about what happened before the pandemic. Everyone was working from home. We have specific ways of working. Companies have a clear talent strategy. They were experimenting with artificial intelligence for the employee experience and using all these ecosystem organizations to create better experiences. The moment COVID hit, it changed the way how we relate and how we work, how we deliver value to our customers. And that involved that ecosystem, all these organizations adjusted their value proposition. Let me give you a tangible example. Think about the solutions that are competing in the employee engagement, employee listening space. In the past, everything was okay, I can offer a solution that can help you to identify how people feel within the organization. I can just bring a survey and we can deploy it, or we can have workshops, or we can have different interactions with your workforce and be able to come back to you with some insights. Okay. As a result of the pandemic, all these solutions started thinking and shifting their approach. And they invest heavily in technology, specifically in artificial intelligence, to be able to capture three things: how people work, how do they work, but also who are the right leaders, informal leaders within the organizations that will allow enterprises to identify specific gaps and pain points that employees might have across the enterprise. In addition to that, these organizations were able to develop advanced employee sentiment capabilities to be able to understand how people feel about something particular within the pandemic. So all those components had evolved in the last 12 months. And now we have solutions that can work 100% remotely. Solutions that can be plugged into the HR stack, solutions that can, I would say, are 100% compliant, and others are still in the process to be compliant. But the point here that I want to make with this audience is that the whole market ecosystem adapted. They were able to bring investments from the venture capitals and then bring specific solutions more tailored to recruiting, well-being, talent development, internal talent marketplace, employee listening, and so on and so forth. So two big changes to wrap up this section. First, companies adapted. They were trying to figure out what's the best way to organize work. In addition to that, start thinking about how I'm going to redefine my talent strategy, thinking that I'm going to have people working remotely and others working on site. And in addition to that, what's the best way to understand my people's needs and reactions? And from the market ecosystem, we've seen a lot of investments from the artificial intelligence side, data scientist teams that were able to create new products and services to provide support to these organizations.
No, thank you for that. Super interesting changes, and I'm sure a lot of the things that were implemented will stick around in the post-COVID workforce. Albert, final question from me. Look, you've got quite an interesting role, given you work with so many different organizations and trying to help them implement AI in HR digital transformation and AI and all other aspects of what they do. What do you enjoy most about the work that you're doing currently?
I would say what is something fascinating. The whole HR technology space is something that is part of my DNA. But what I really enjoy the most is the opportunity to work with our clients to advise them on how technology is evolving and it's enabling different moments that matter, changing the way how we define employee experience and talent stride. And many companies think that this is only a technology change, but what Accenture is thinking, and this is our POV when we discuss with our clients, technology is just one piece of the entire equation of how you create transformation within organizations. We got to think about ways of working. We got to think about change. We got to think about operating model. And in addition to that, the culture. And let me give you a tangible example. Think about the human and machine collaboration. Like right now, we see cars that are able to, self-driving cars that are able to deliver pizza or deliver mail. Also, we see robots collaborating, with other Fortune 500 organizations, big warehouse, and interacting with humans. So all of this is changing the way how we create a new culture, the way how we define responsibilities, and in addition to that, the way how we define a specific operating model to be efficient, so that companies can deliver the best experience to their customers. All these technology changes are just, as I was mentioning before, is just touching one piece of the entire value proposition of organization. Many organizations are realizing that, okay, if I'm bringing a technology, then I have to think about the people side, I have to think about the process, as well as the way how my culture might evolve. So those are the things that I enjoy working for the firm, because it allows us to understand that even though the technology changes and are affecting every single industry and the way how we live, every reality, every company is different. And this is because there are different levels of maturity when we think about organizations that sit in the oil and gas comparing to manufacturing services. So every organization is a new challenge, and every organization allows Accenture to provide a different POV and a strategy to tailor our clients.
Amazing. Well, Albert, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today and giving us some insight into your role within Accenture, how you're working with AI platforms specifically focused on improving employee experience and the HR process for organizations, the changes that happened throughout COVID, and what you enjoy most about your work. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.